Morning, all. All right, news of the day video to start things off today for your Thursday, November the 14th. Almost halfway through November already. So, Buffalo news for tonight's game. Tage Thompson, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen will not be available tonight for the Buffalo Sabres, but they're seen as day to day. Samuelsson is week to week. So, they'll be without Samuelsson on the blue line for a bit. It doesn't sound like they're going to miss UPL or Tage Thompson for that long, but they will not have them available for tonight's game. We'll see how things go. Coming out of last night's loss against Toronto, Coach Carberry has some words to say about how embarrassing he felt that it was. Dylan Strome as well said that with the 2-goal lead, they just stopped, playing really well and that they just didn't get any pucks deep. So there's a reason that's a catchphrase. Pucks deep, pucks deep. It matters about whether or not you're actually establishing zone time, making them go the full 200 feet, or just playing back. And I mentioned in the review, it felt like they were playing back a little bit early for protecting a lead, and Toronto made them pay. So with the coach saying that it's embarrassing, expect a harsh practice or two maybe, and I would think the Capitals will come out and play a better 60-minute game next time out, which, considering how many goals they've been scoring this season, is bad news for whoever they play next. Vegas Golden Knights news, with Victor Olofsson going on to LTIR for the team. That is 14 teams this season, according to Puckpedia, that have used LTIR so far this season. Last year, we saw a record with 22. Again, according to Puckpedia, 22 teams used LTIR last year. And this year it's 14. And this is why when, GMs are going to talk about changing LTIR rules and everything, it's just going to be to do with playoffs, because everybody's playing the same game during the regular season, and you don't want to do something that's going to hurt you trying to hurt somebody else. So, 14 teams using LTIR. I think it's probably going to surprise some people that Vegas was the 14th team to use it. They didn't use it right away. Again, if it's used correctly, it can absolutely, you could weaponize LTIR, but in general, I don't feel that teams are doing that. Jake Allen gets the start tonight against the Florida Panthers. He sits at 198 career wins, and this could be an interesting one tonight. Florida has to be embarrassed by what happened in the last game, and now they get a chance for some measure of revenge, so we'll see how things go between them and the New Jersey Devils tonight, but it should be very entertaining. A retirement to discuss, Matt Irwin, one of those defensemen that I have nothing but respect for. Defensive defenseman, bounced around the league a lot and played whatever role he had to. And this past season, Matt Irwin played for the Abbotsford Canucks. He, of course, signed with Vancouver, ended up spending the whole season in Abbotsford, and he was a good defenseman for Abbotsford. But in his NHL career, he plays a total of 461 games, 25 goals, 68 assists, 93 points, playing with San Jose, Boston, Nashville, Anaheim, Buffalo, and Washington. Sadly, didn't get a game for Vancouver last year, so can't put Vancouver on the board, but they did have his rights this past season. So that's 6 different teams for Irwin, and all the best to him in retirement. These are the kind of defensemen that sometimes make really good coaches, sometimes make really good guys in development, and so all the best to Irwin. Who knows, maybe he'd stick around in Abbotsford. Anyway, just throwing that out there. But we'll see how things go for him in retirement. Maybe we see him on TV, because that seems to be what happens with a lot of guys when they retire as well. Victor Arvidsson, with an undisclosed injury for the Edmonton Oilers, is not playing tonight against the Nashville Predators. So that's a bit of a hit on the Edmonton Oilers. Of course, Nashville, they've lost 2 games against Edmonton already this season. They don't want to lose a third. The Nashville Predators trying to convince their general manager not to opt for a rebuild. Have to, start playing a little bit better and winning with some more regularity, because otherwise you're leaving the GM with not a whole lot of options other than to sell off assets and either rearm the team for next year or look at, blowing things up. Which, again, as I've mentioned in recent videos, there's so many teams that are in that kind of situation. I do not understand. And I get the argument that, well, you don't want to be knocked out in the first round every year. So that's given me a video idea for something I'm going to do soon. Maybe even today, who knows. I'm trying to find the time to get everything charted out. But the idea that, well, we have a team that's good enough to be in the top half of the league, but it's not good enough to win, so we're just going to rip the whole thing apart. It's so hard to get back to being one of the top half teams in the NHL if you don't do it exactly right. So, the whole idea of blowing things up, I've definitely changed my opinion on that with how long rebuilds are taking now. I'm an old man. I can't afford to, spend the next 10 years watching one of the teams I root for be awful. Even though that could very well happen with one of the teams I root for. It has happened before with teams I root for. Hello, Vancouver. I'm so glad they're not awful right now. Jonas Brodin, upper body injury for the Minnesota Wild. That tangent was brought to you by nobody. I don't have any sponsors. Brodin, upper body injury, won't play tonight against the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, if you're interested in the sponsorship, by all means, they email all the time. But yeah, Brodin won't play tonight for Minnesota. Upper body injury against the Montreal Canadiens. So we'll see how long he's out. That'd be a huge loss for Minnesota if it's not just for this game. Brodin is a very important piece of that blue line, and Minnesota misses him anytime that he's out of the lineup. Colorado continues to get healthier, and we saw last night against LA that Colorado's back to being the Colorado Avalanche that we all know and you might love and you might not. But they get Drouin activated off of IR today. Miles Wood has been activated off IR as well. It's just one after another after another. And as we saw last night against LA, Colorado's back to being healthy enough that they can just say, you know what, our goaltender, we're just not going to allow any shots, which is a really good strategy because Georgiev, you're trying to get his stats, back to where you want them to be. And if he's facing very few shots per game, he's not going to be allowing a lot of goals, and that absolutely should help his confidence. So we shall see how things go there. But yeah, Colorado gets healthier. On the Columbus side of things, good news for Blue Jackets fans. Ken Johnson, he has practiced today for the first time since he was injured in October. The Columbus Blue Jackets looked like they were going to be fine without Johnson for a while, and then the road trip happened. So the road trip showed that this team still has a lot of work left to do, but if you get Kent Johnson back in the lineup, I mean, he had 5 points in the 4 games he did play, so there's definitely some potential there for Johnson. Jake Wallman is still out with an upper body injury tonight for San Jose against the Rangers. This is definitely becoming more long-term than it looked like at the time. Initially, it looked like he was just a healthy scratch, and then it became, well, he tweaked something, and now we're, a week later, and he's still out of the lineup, so not sure what's going on there. We know it's an upper body injury, but he's been out for a bit, and he's going to be out for a bit longer, so won't be playing tonight for the Sharks against the New York Rangers. Pittsburgh did send Bloomquist down to the AHL, not a surprise there. They'll go with Nedeljkovic and Jari because Bloomquist didn't have to clear waivers. Nieto was recalled from a conditioning stint, and they also called up Ponomarev. So if Ponomarev, I've heard it said both ways, him being recalled, we'll see where he slots into the lineup and what the plan is. Because Pittsburgh loses another one last night, and it was one where, they fought their way back into it, and then they lost in overtime. It does feel like Pittsburgh might not be that far off. And it's cliche that there's a very fine line between winning and losing. But with the Penguins right now, it feels like there is. And so if you get the right spark plug into that lineup, maybe they start getting some wins together. Philadelphia news. Sam Ersson apparently tweaked something yesterday at practice. He's unavailable tonight. So is it the same injury that he had before? At any rate, Fedotov starts tonight, and Kolosov will be the backup. So Philadelphia carrying 3 goaltenders. That's the right call, because until Ersson's 100%, you might as well keep Kolosov around. Plus, if Kolosov's on the Philadelphia roster for a longer period of time, you have less risk that he's going to say, well, I'm invoking my clause to return home and play for the KHL, because there is that clause in his contract, right? So, yeah, we'll see how things go with Fedotov. I'm rooting for Fedotov to have a good game tonight. I don't know if he will, but I'm rooting for him to have one because his numbers have been kind of ugly this season, but he's coming off of his best game in his career that he played against Tampa Bay. So Diamond Sports Group, the owner of Bally Sports, which of course now is FanDuel, it's been rebranded. But this is interesting news because there's been a lot of talk about Amazon Prime and the broadcasts in Canada. Well, I was going to do a video on the broadcasts on both sides of the border, and now I'm kind of glad I didn't. Now I might want to, pull back on that for a little bit and wait and see what happens here. Diamond Sports Group, again, the owner of what was known as Bally. So if you cheer for a team that was on Bally Sports and is now FanDuel, Diamond is emerging from bankruptcy. Their debt drops from $9 billion to $200 million. So a lot of that debt's being written off so they can get out of bankruptcy and get back into, not worrying about going bankrupt and worrying more about, how they're going to make their money back on their regional sports broadcasts. And there's games moving to Amazon Prime. So, we don't know yet how that's all going to work. There hasn't been like a big announcement or anything, so I'm going to wait until there's a big announcement. I would think the NHL will get involved. Amazon likes their live sports. Netflix getting into the live sports as well. People are going to watch Jake Paul fight an old man in a few days. I don't think any of us are going to be surprised if the old man, Mike Tyson, wins. So, live sports moving to other streaming services has definitely become more prominent on both sides of the border, and that's going to continue. So let me know your thoughts. So in the event that games move to Amazon Prime, all let's just say all of the Bally Sports broadcasts that are now FanDuel move over to Amazon Prime. How's that going to affect whether or not you're going to watch your favorite team? And then just from a personal perspective, just saying it out loud, I'm like, wait a minute. The Amazon Prime broadcasts in Canada, you can't see them if you don't have Amazon Prime. For games going to Amazon Prime in the States, will I have access to them through NHL Center Ice? Will I have access to them through Sportsnet Plus? I should, but will I? And there's the question mark, right? Because again, if it's an Amazon Prime exclusive, does that mean that it overrides my ability to watch those games in Canada? And of course, then the question that gets asked is, so your price doesn't change for what you're whether you're on Sportsnet Plus, maybe in the States you got ESPN Plus. So if you lose certain games, it's not like they're going to say, well, hey, because these games are gone off the service, we're going to drop your cost. That's not going to happen. So you're essentially paying more, and you're getting less. That's shrinkflation. All right. But let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event that you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.